Man, JJ Redick has been on a tear this month so far, or really starting last month. He's been on the tear with some of the things he said to the media, and it's weird. I can't put my finger on it and really understand how he's taking his turn with how he's been covering the NBA lately. Because when he first got on ESPN, he was on fire with some of his takes. His takes made sense. His takes didn't seem like it had a lot of propaganda in it. He was pro player. Everything he said seemed to be very intelligent. And it seemed like he knew what he was talking about. And like, everybody enjoyed seeing him on ESPN. He was a breath of fresh air. Lately, it seemed like he's following the Kendrick Perkins blueprint, man. He's just saying the dumbest things. And this last 3 or 4 takes he's had that went viral was quite disrespectful. And if you can remember a year ago, he had some disrespectful stuff he said about Bob Cousy. And Bob Cousy came out and kind of made light of it. You know what I mean? He kind of made a joke out of it, but it's a lot of players that took offense to what he said, including the logo. Jerry West came out and he really tore into JJ Redick pretty good. But he did it in a really professional way. Then fast forward to now, he said some things about Larry Bird, and Dominique Wilkins had to come in and kind of get on him a little bit. He said his take was idiotic. And that same comment he made about Larry Bird caught the ear of another legend. And I'm going to play for you what he said. And it was actually Michael Cooper, one of the fierce competitors and defenders that had to battle with Larry Bird for years. And he didn't even like what JJ Redick had to say. And wait till you hear how Michael Cooper tore into JJ Redick on his podcast.
Well, you know what I'm going to say? The JJ Redick, this kid here who's a journeyman, played for 6 different teams. All his accolades came in college, played 15 years in the NBA, was being shifted around from team to team because all he could do was shoot. And he wasn't that great of a shooter. He was a poor man, Danny Ainge, because Steph is being played more physical. They got his hands on. In today's NBA, I don't know what game he's looking at. You can't touch the guy. Anytime you touch anybody, a 3-point shooter, come close to them when they're landing, it's a foul. JJ Redick needs to be quiet and stop trying to compare. I think he's gotten out of this what he wants to, is that his name being thrown around and the attention and all that. But you know what? It's attention that he's not going to want, because a lot of former players, myself just as one, along with Dominique, talk about this guy who's a poor-man Jeff Hornacek, a guy that, why would he even say that? And when all he got, and when he's talking about that, you can't say that by watching game film. You have to talk to the players that lived it. I lived that 80s era, and Larry Bird was one of the greatest 3-point shooters that's ever played this game. Fuck percentages. It ain't about that. It's about hitting big shots, things that he couldn't do as a player without getting a pick set for him. So, when people compare each generation, and I appreciate and love basketball, I enjoy each decade. I have so much respect going all the way back to the 60s and watching Bob Cousy.
That's where it started. That's where it started with Redick. Not to interrupt you, but 6 months ago or a year ago, Redick was calling Bob Cousy a plumber who couldn't dribble with his left hand.
Well, he got a lot of nerve to say that about Bob Cousy. He could barely dribble with his left hand, with his right hand. And that was the best hand he had, JJ Redick. Couldn't get open without a pick being set. So, that guy, man, it's sad because you have to have respect from where this game comes from. All these guys in today's game, I'll say from maybe 5 years ago up until where it's going to go, are living, playing, breathing off the shoulders of Bob Cousy, Wilt Chamberlain, Bob Pettit, players that came in. And then you just go through the decades as you come up with Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor. These guys are making money. having fame with the way that we used to play the game, and for him to call out, and you know what? I hate Larry Bird, but I respect the hell out of that man because I went against him in all those championships and during the year. I all we did as the Lakers is thought about the Boston Celtics.
Okay, so he said a whole lot there, and it was a 22-minute podcast, and most of it, probably more than half of it, most of it was on that topic of JJ Redick, and that was just like one of his rants. It was a reflash. They started talking about something else, and he reflashed and went right back to it. Yeah, I mean, he said things like, "Look, man, if I was guarding you in your day, JJ Redick, you wouldn't even get a shot off." And I believe it. Like that. That's how good of a defender Michael Cooper was. I mean, he had to defend Larry Bird. Like Larry Bird is a top 5 player of all time, right? JJ Redick is not, right? So if Michael Cooper ever got switched on to JJ Redick and said stop JJ Redick, I'm pretty sure he would have stopped JJ Redick, right? You know, the things he said about JJ Redick's game, he needed a screen to get open. Like JJ Redick wasn't going to come down and get the ball and beat his man with the dribble. He wasn't going to beat his man off the bounce. He had to come off screens, which is fine. A lot of NBA players have thrived with with that type of skill set. Cal Korver or whoever else, Steve Kerr, those type of guys. If you can shoot, you can shoot, right? But to say, and maybe you didn't hear what JJ Redick said. Maybe I should have played that video. But basically, what he was doing is having a conversation on Stephen A's First Take show with Mad Dog Russo. And Mad Dog Russo is an older guy who's watched these guys play. He's been around sports for a long time. And he basically was just having a conversation about how good of a shooter Larry Bird was. And JJ Redick just threw his paper and pen in the air like, oh my God, like Larry Bird is not that good of a shooter. He pretty much said, no, he's not a top 5 shooter. His 3-point percentage was like whatever it was, like I guess 40% and below 40%, like 36, 37%. So he's going to go to Larry Bird's 3-point percentage to prove that he wasn't a top 3-point shooter of all time. And you just can't go to 3-point percentage and make that comment. It's not free throws. Like if you say free throws, everyone has the same circumstances for their free throws. We all shoot them, and no one's contesting your shot. You get the same amount of time to shoot it, right? That's different, right? So can a player whose 3-point percentage is higher than mine also not be as good as a 3-point shooter as me? Yes, that is possible. That can happen. How can that happen? The same way everyone cracks on Kobe Bryant about having a low field goal percentage and saying, well, Kobe Bryant's not that good of a scorer. He's just not efficient. His field goal percentage is low, as like 48. Well, if you look at the shots Kobe Bryant take, number one, he's always going to have the best wing defender on him. Number two, he's never going to be single coverage. He's always going to have double coverage. Number three, he don't have to get all the way to the rim for his shots. He will take that shot in double coverage, single coverage, triple coverage, and he'll shoot it over your outreach hands, and that's a good shot to him. So if I'm shooting almost 50% with 2 hands in my face all the time from the mid-range, then you can say I'm a good shooter. But if someone like Cal Korver never sees a double team and he's running off screens and catching shoots, okay, that's different. So if you're not going to tell me Cal Korver is a better 2-point shooter or a better scorer than Kobe because he has a slightly better field goal percentage than him, right? Or you're not going to tell me LeBron is a better scorer than Kobe because he has a slightly better field goal percentage when I know Kobe is shooting heavily contested mid-range jump shots, most of his shots, and LeBron is shooting layups and dunks for most of his shots, right? It just only makes sense. So you can't fool the American public like they're not smart people and say Larry Bird's not a good 3-point shooter because his field goal percentage is low, or his 3-point percentage is below 40%. It's just idiotic. I mean, we seen Larry Bird play, we seen how he performed in the 3-point contest, and we know how his career ended with not having a lower back at all the last 4 years he played. So it's an explanation why his three-point percentage might not be super high, but it doesn't mean that he's not a great shooter. So anyway, that was the first thing he said. And then Russo was trying to explain all of that to him by saying, look, man, you know, Larry Bird had to go through a lot of red tape to get a shot, man. It was a very physical league. And, you know, he was trying to explain, like, you know, like it's a lot more physicality that Bird is dealing with before he even get to a shot. And JJ Redick just lost it. Man, just stop it with this physicality stuff. He was like, and he pretty much said Steph Curry is seeing more physical play than Larry Bird did. That's what JJ Redick said. And that's what prompted Dominique Wilkins and Michael Cooper to come at him like that. So last thing I say about that is it's not a smart take. What I'm noticing from JJ Redick and a lot of players right now that's in the media is they're tired of the old heads telling them how soft their game has gotten. So when, you know, it's striking a nerve. You know, JJ Redick is getting out of character every time he has a conversation with Stephen A. Smith or Russo when they bring the physicality up. They're just getting out of character, just breaking their professional mode. They just oh man, I just can't handle it. Like they can't stand hearing it. And you know, because it feels like an attack on them as well. Like, you telling us we played in the weaker league. So that's what they're really attacking. He's really attacking the fact that he's tired of the old head saying this, and Kendrick Perkins is too. And that's why they're propping up this era and propping up the players in this era. And they're saying, oh, Steph is better than Larry Bird and he faced more physicality than Larry Bird, and LeBron is better than Jordan, and LeBron is the GOAT, and all these things, right? And no one in that era, like Gilbert Arenas saying, nobody in that era can even guard nobody in this era. This is debate, you know. So it's become a debate amongst old heads and modern players about which era is better. And what I would say to that is that, and this is my opinion, I think whenever 50s, late 50s, early 60s, when the NBA started, of course it's a baby, right? And I think that baby grew. And of course, as the baby grows, it gets better and better, right? And I think it's always with anything, and especially in this analogy of a baby growing into an adult, you're always ascending to a certain peak. You get to that peak and you ride that peak for a while, but at some point you start to decline as an old person. I think the NBA is declining, right? And I'm not talking about the ratings and how much money they're making. That's just the business side of it. I'm talking about the NBA as a game. It developed. You got people dribbling with one hand. There's no three-point shot. There's less athleticism. There's less technology with the equipment they're wearing, the tennis shoes and all that stuff. And, you know, people not jumping as high, right? That's how it started out. And then it got to a point, I think the 80s was an era where, okay, now you got good ball players. You got Magic Johnsons, you got Kareems, you got Bird, you got these type of players, and they're good, right? They're good. But the league was not at its highest peak. The players was getting there. Around the 90s, that's when it just exploded, right? NBA exploded. I think from the 90s to the early 2000s was the best we'll ever see the NBA, because it was a combination of, now the NBA knows how to market the game. So now we got a huge audience, even some audience overseas. Huge audience. We're making money. We're monetizing the game. We got great players. We got great teams and great basketball, right? The basketball is they're allowed to play. You get to see all phases of the basketball, meaning offense and defense. So you're getting great offense, great scoring, great defense, all on TV. Dunk contest was good. You know, all that stuff was good. And then the NBA really learned how to market their game. So instead of letting it come to them a little natural, they'll start forcing the issue. All right, who's the next Michael Jordan? You know, Michael Jordan fell in their lap. You didn't look for the next Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was the first Michael Jordan. Oh, this is okay. So once they learn, oh man, we had Michael Jordan for 15 years, maybe, you know, really 13 years, because you know, we're not gonna count the Wizard years, you know, but we had Michael Jordan for 13 years, and that's the blueprint on how we market this game. So who's the next Michael Jordan going to be? And then you get Kobe, you get the next Michael Jordan, and then you kind of marketed him a little bit. And then you get LeBron, and then you market him a little bit. So now we know how to market this game around a player, right? And get the most out of it. So now the NBA is really giving us less basketball and more storyline, drama, entertainment. And the basketball is suffering. The NBA got too good at their job. So they know how to market the game and push it to you. And now we got sports radio. You get to hear all this stuff all day long, and they're creating stories and drama. And then you got debate shows and all this stuff. Who's the GOAT? They just know how to do that way too well. And here it is. We suffering from we watching a game where they changed the rules purposely for more scoring, more offense. We just had a game that was 176 to 175 against the Clippers and the Kings. 176 and 175. The Kings had two players with 40, another player with 30. Imagine that. And they got one all-star, but they got two players that have 40. We got two players that scored 71 this year. Imagine that. Right? So the NBA has tampered with the game so much for monetary reasons that the actual basketball on the court is way worse. The All-Star game was the worst rated All-Star game that we've had in the league. Imagine that. And now they're trying to blame it on all this other stuff. Oh, load management is the reason, or this is the reason. No, you changed the rules. You can't even stand in the paint and be a shot block anymore. 7-footers got to come out of the paint and guard now. So they want the paint wide open for more layups and dunks, more excitement. They took the post game completely out of the game. There's really only like 4 players that post up. Jokic, Embiid do it every now and then, and then you got a couple of guys like Kevin Durant, Booker, or Luka that might go in the mid post. But as far as low post, Embiid, Jokic, and who else? Right? They took the post out of the game. They took the 7-foot big man out of the game, right? Unless he can hit the 3 or the jump shot. They took the mid range out of the game. Is a handful. Like we talk about the mid range like it's an endangered species, right? DeRozan, CP3, Booker, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Handful of guys utilizing the mid range, right? They took defense completely out of the game. So you don't have defense, you don't have post game, you don't have big man, you don't have defensive battle, like all that stuff they took out of the game. That's part of basketball. That was part of the NBA. They took it out for more money, more excitement, more eyes on the game, and the game is suffering from it. So in my opinion, the NBA had already hit its peak. It rode its peak as far as it could, and now it's on the decline. I say all that to say this. If you want to get back to the basics, get rid of the rules you made, get rid of the rules David Stern made for more excitement, and just go back to original basketball. It's not like it's football where the rules they made actually is prolonging careers and preventing players from having concussions and stuff like that. I understand why they don't want receivers to be defensive and get hit. I understand why they don't want people to lead with their helmet to hit people. I understand why you don't want quarterbacks to get hit in the head. I understand why you don't want quarterbacks to get hit low when they planting their feet in the pocket throwing. I understand all of that. Those are safety concerns. But there's nothing that was a safety concern about you saying, you know what, let's create 3 seconds in the key. That way the big man can't sit in the lane. Or you know what, if you commit to a double team, you got to come all the way over. Or you know what, let's take away the hand check. Let's call the game a little bit tighter, so so it'd be more often. Just ridiculous, right? Go back to the normal, and you might see some better basketball. So, for JJ Redick to not understand that and be a former NBA player is kind of beyond me. But that's my thoughts, man. Let me know what y'all thinking in the comment section.